I'm kind of
it's definitely
there we go.
off.
Okay, I was like, something seemed weird. I'm glad you like kept at it, because I would have been like, let's get started.
Microphone was off, everyone.
Episode 18 tonight?
18.
This is exciting.
Almost been doing this for a year? Yeah, we're doing things differently, as you can tell. Our new studio, and yeah, welcome back to Giggle and Grow.
Guys, this is going to be really exciting tonight. I think we have a lot of things that have personally been affecting us in our own life that we want to talk about tonight. I think it really touches a lot on the idea of happiness and how that all kind of lies out in our lives. I think it looks different, obviously, for everyone, but I think it has a lot to do with the different habits that we have, our mindset, and what we expect of ourselves versus realistic expectations, right? And just, I don't know, a lot of different things we want to cover. So
yeah, I mean, a lot of what we're coming across is like how to deal with happiness and how to understand it ourselves. And so we did a deep dive into it. So we have some fun educational facts we're going to throw at you. I think we have some self-love workbooks that I'm going to throw some quotes at you from. Morgan has some good stuff. So I guess let's just kick it off, Morgan. Let's define happiness. I really want to go into the educational piece because I thought so much that like happiness was a way that you felt all the time. And I think when I did a bunch of education and research on happiness and what it means is, you know, there are different ways of saying it or understanding it. And I realized the biggest thing is like, happiness is not something that you are all the time.
It's true, though. And I want to throw this quote in here really quick before we get into kind of all that fun stuff, is that happy people, it's not that they're always happy. It's that they understand that there are going to be days that are not according to our plan, and that they still know that they're going to wake up tomorrow and have the chance to feel that happiness all over again. And so we have to understand that although we know someone maybe in our lives that is always smiling, always having a good time, putting on a good face, I think there's still life behind them, and sometimes we just kind of get lost in the midst of it.
Yeah. So. And I think too, we crave so badly as humans to want to be happy and to like understand what happiness is, that sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves.
It's so true.
We're like, this is going to make me happy. If I do this and I do this, it's going to make me happy. And in reality, it's like stressing you out. And so that's something I'm dealing with a lot. Like at work, you know, I work a full-time job and I can get really stressed out, and I just want to make everybody around me happy. And I don't think about my own happiness. And then I have my at-home stuff where I'm planning we've talked about this. We have a podcast. I'm planning a wedding. I'm doing so many things that sometimes I'm like, all I want to do is, this is all going to make me happy. And it's like, don't get lost in what's going to make you happy. And like, remember that there are things that you're doing that make you happy.
No, and it's so true. And I also say for myself, I think I do have these high expectations of myself, and a lot of what I think is going to make me happy is if I can check all these things off of my to-do list and accomplish every single thing. But then I get distracted by my to-do list and I forget what is actually important to me, what's actually going to fill up my bucket, because it's all these things that I'm trying to output, but I'm not inputting anything to myself. And if you're forgetting about yourself along the way and just worrying about what you need to get done, you forget that happiness matters. And it's not that you even realize that you're not happy, because there are moments that feel great. I mean, even when we're checking off those to-do lists, I get this little adrenaline rush, like, yes, I did that. I feel accomplished, and we should all feel that feeling. But we can't just constantly expect that feeling when we're not putting into ourselves. So not every happy person on this planet is always happy. Those people that you think are happy do have a life behind them. So always remember that those people, they're not expecting happiness all the time, but they know that they are given a chance tomorrow to wake up again and create that happiness that they desire.
So we're actually going to go through the different definitions of happiness from a psychological, a philosophical, and a scientific perspective. And I'll try to go through these pretty quick because there's two types of happiness in psychology, right? So there's hedonic happiness, which focuses on pleasure attainment and pain avoidance. So for example, relaxing on the beach, watching a comedy show, shopping for pleasure. So if you think about it, those are all really moments of happiness. So it's not experiencing happiness all the time. It's like these moments of happiness. Eudaimomic happiness is the other type of happiness, and that derives from actually a Greek word. Eudaimonia is, I think, how you say it, which translate to flourishing or living well. So this is the type of happiness that I think we're preaching to people, and what we want to achieve in our daily lives is self-realization, personal growth, fulfillment of one's potential. So, for example, engaging in acts of kindness, cultivating meaningful relationships. So when you think of happiness from a bigger perspective of rather than just a mood, I think you can understand it better, and you can think, you have moods that are happy, but also from a psychological perspective, there's ways you can be happy by realizing, okay, our podcast is doing well. And that's like we're achieving these goals, and it's making us feel good.
It's kind of like that. What do they call that? Self-affirming.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like you're constantly self-affirming yourself. Maybe in that exact moment you don't want to be somewhere at some time, but you have that little spark in your mind, just like you said, oh, my podcast is really doing well, or I got a sale today in my business.
Yes.
I mean, that little affirmation to yourself. I mean,
or I held the door open for somebody.
Yes.
And like, I think what we're struggling with, or I am, is realizing that that is what happiness is.
Yeah. I honestly, and I think that is something that's been confusing in my life too. I think I have, at least I think I've shared this before, but such a perfectionist mindset. I think it's so easy to have this idea of what you want your life to look like, or that moment to look like, or whatever that may be, but it doesn't always feel that way, right? And I'm going to bring it back to even the idea of FOMO. Back in college, I had severe FOMO. I did not want to miss out a night with my friends. That was the worst thing in the world. Like, how could I do that? I wanted to be a part of every moment and the memories I could create. But sometimes when I was sitting there, it wasn't that I wasn't having a good time or having, that special moment with a friend, but you get that such idea in your mind of what it's going to be. And when you actually understand what reality is, what happiness is, like we're discussing here, it's not that idea you have in your mind. It's something that you have to create yourself and feel yourself.
Yeah, and I think sometimes too, it's like it's not always a feeling. It's more it's more than that. Like it's about like learning that maybe like different feelings are happiness too. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, that's the best way to think of it. But that's how I think of it.
No, I love that.
Yeah. So the next thing we'll talk about, so we talked about psychological ways of looking at it and defining it. These are more philosophical ways of looking at it. And bear me if I say these wrong. I think it's Epicurean is how you say it, but it's Epicurean happiness. So it's rooted in the philosophical of like the story of Epicurus. This type of happiness is characterized by tranquility and absence of pain. It suggests that happiness is achieved through simple living, friendship, and freedom from fear and anxiety. For example, maintaining physical health, finding pleasure in solitude. So it kind of reminds me of eudaimonic happiness as well. So it kind of relates to that from a psychological perspective, but it's more philosophical.
Yeah. I definitely am someone that struggles with this, finding happiness in solitude. I don't often know that I need it until I am given the moment of solitude, and I'm like, wow.
Starting to learn that as I get older, for sure.
Definitely. And I think it's hard too. You kind of forget you need those me moments when you love being around your partner, or love being around friends, or you're working all day, and the last thing I want to do is go home and be alone. I mean, I want to go snuggle with my husband, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, but everyone needs that a little bit of alone time to really, I think, just know what you need.
It's the type of happiness, right?
Yeah.
You have to find what works for you. And
exactly.
Like, solitude is definitely something that I think, like when I think from a philosophical perspective, I think from something that you're going to need at some point in your life, because you might not need it now. It might not work for you now, but as I've gotten older, there are certain days where I'm just like, I can't be around people. I just need to recharge, especially since I'm in sales. But
definitely no, and I have those days too. And I definitely, I mean, I'm not as social as I once was. I definitely am someone that enjoys the idea of being at home, being in my safe space, cuddling on the couch, doing things on my iPad, or, you know, all playing games, playing with my cats, all the things. But no, I think I love that we're talking about this idea of happiness, because I think it's easy to, once again, as we are having this idea of the things that we want to do or who we need to be, it's so easy to look at social media and be like, oh, I need to be doing that for that to make me happy. And like you said, we have to know that every thing that we see online is going to work for us. Creating happiness is about finding really what works for you.
Yeah.
And you have to be aware of that and be willing to get uncomfortable. We say this a lot, but you have to be willing to get uncomfortable and try things in order to know if it's going to make you happy, or maybe it's not something you're going to stick with. You have to be also willing to change in order to find happiness.
Yeah. And I think too, just recognizing that is a type of happiness, and it's a part of your well-being, and that's what's going to make you overall a happier person.
Yeah.
Stoic happiness is another. So Epicurean happiness, I think I'm saying that right. We'll see. And Stoic happiness are the two philosophical ways of looking at it. And Stoic teaches that happiness comes from living in accordance with reason and virtue. So it emphasizes acceptance of things beyond one's control and maintaining a calm, rational mind in the face of adversity. So for example, one of the hardest things I think is accepting the nature of things, engaging in self-reflection, and even finding meaning in duty. So I think accepting the nature of things is like accepting that everybody dies, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Finding, like, accepting that life goes on, and like accepting that, you know,
the world doesn't stop for you.
That's the nature of things.
Is how this world has made us feel too.
Yeah.
There is something always going. Nothing ever shuts off. And I think we have this idea that we aren't able to shut off either.
Yeah. And you only have you, and like you're experiencing this life in your form, and you have to protect that.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it, Courtney.
Yeah. Self-reflection and even finding meaning in duty. So I think me and you are the type that we find so much meaning and so much duty that sometimes we need to take our step back. Yes. And yeah.
I think you touched on a good point there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that is definitely something that I'm learning. I very much believe that I was brought here for the act of service. I think I very value the idea of being able to help others in any way, shape, or form, just serving them in any way, being able to bring a smile to their day. I mean, there's often times that I don't even realize that I'm smiling, but the community or the energy that I'm feeling, just it automatically brings me joy to be able to help someone and be in that setting. And so, but because I enjoy that so much, once again, it's easy to push yourself off, and we forget really what our own happiness and what it looks like. Yeah.
You almost lose that accepting of the nature of things because you're so, you want to find happiness in this one thing, and you think that is so much going to make you happy that you forget that there are other parts of it, and that if you lean or you put all your eggs in one basket, or you put all your energy into one thing, that you lose your happiness in your other places. So it's really all about balancing that.
It is having to learn how to balance your life and being able to know when you need to rest, knowing when you can go. And I mean, we were just talking about this, Courtney, actually at the beginning of our conversation before even hopping on here tonight, about the idea of us women and how our cycle can really play a factor in that too. And I want you ladies to know that once you start to notice how you feel in each phase, you will start to really notice certain things and be able to actually accept how you feel or what you're feeling. You'll really start to appreciate yourself a little bit more. And this book that I read, Do Less, I highly recommend it. I think every girl should read it because it helps you to track that too. If you're someone that just maybe needs a notebook and write things out, know how you feel. I needed that too, and it was eye-opening.
We're on the topic of menstrual cycles and science and how it affects our happiness and our mood and all of those fun things. The last definition I want to talk about for happiness is experiential happiness and imperative happiness, which these are scientific ways. So how I think of it is more structured way of looking at happiness. And what that looks like is we have experiential happiness. So this refers to happiness derived from experiences rather than material possessions. So experiential happiness emphasizes the lasting positive effects of memorable experiences over fleeting pleasures. For example, traveling to a new destination, attending a concert or live event, and learning new skills. I think that is the one that we crave the most, in my opinion, as humans.
Oh, definitely. We chase after that.
Yeah.
I know I do. I definitely am always wanting to plan a travel vacation or knowing where I'm going next just to keep me excited, or a concert. I know a lot of our friends love to have like 5 or 6 concerts lined up, and I'm like, I wish I did.
Yeah, and what it does too is it makes you look forward to something, which I'm all about, looking forward to something, but you know, sometimes it takes you away from being in the moment, you know?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, especially when you're just only looking forward to that next thing and you're not enjoying what's in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last one is comparative happiness. So comparative happiness theory positions that individuals evaluate their happiness relative to others. So it suggests that one's happiness is influenced by social comparison and perceived relative standing in terms of wealth, success, social status. For example, material possessions, physical appearance, and life milestones and achievements. So
I think this is something that our generation definitely really leans on.
Values more.
Values a lot.
I think they value this more and maybe, get it more from... I wouldn't even say, now that I read both of them out loud, I wouldn't even say that they get one more from the other. I think experiential happiness is you feel that happiness more, to whereas comparative happiness is, I think that is what can take your happiness away a little bit.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Definitely.
If you're not positioning it in a positive manner.
Exactly. You have to be aware of how you're receiving that information and interpreting and really just your perspective of that, because you have to make sure you're following the people that are actually making you grow. You're wanting to grow from them. You're wanting to grow in a positive way. It's not that, oh, I should look better, or I should look like that, or I should be doing this because they're XYZ, or they make $100,000 and I'm making $1K. You know what I mean?
And they're better than me, and so I can't be happy.
Yes.
Until I'm that, because that's what's going to make me happy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so finding a balance and being able, it's even tough for me. I have to work on self-love a lot of the times.
Me too. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy. You've been working with something lately that's kind of helped you with that. Yeah, I have my little self-love book, and I wanted to I've been reading a lot for you guys today, but self-love is what shines through even when we don't accomplish our goals or meet our measurement of success. Self-love must involve extending kindness and grace to ourselves no matter the outcome. Okay, that's my favorite one, I think. That one's really good.
And this is a good one for you. When we don't prioritize self-love, we hustle to be good enough.
It's so true. It's what I find myself in often.
Yep.
It's not fair.
Yeah, and one of the things that it tells you is like to finish with an affirmation. And it's at the end of each chapter. So it's opening, this is like an affirmation that you can say to yourself that I found that really helps, but it's opening myself up to vulnerability is where the magic happens.
I truly do think it's very important to be vulnerable. And I'm not saying to everyone, but to find those people that you can be vulnerable with and to. It's really important to have family and friends and people that we can lean on in order to have the ability to be vulnerable, because not always are we going to notice that we're not happy. Like you said, we might focus on hustling more, and it might seem okay for a little bit, but in reality, what is that really doing? And when people are willing to question you in the right way and allow you to be open with them and talk about that feeling, it often is going to release something so much bigger that's going to actually lead you to what you were trying to search for anyways, through the hustle, through the work, through all that. Like
what I think we're trying to help, and what I'm putting out there is like, get yourself to a point where you love yourself enough, and maybe that isn't even the best word, but you respect yourself and you can hear yourself needing that time, needing to say, hey, like to your boss, I can't do this. This makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm really stressed out right now. And just like telling that to your boss sometimes can be really tough, because you see your boss is also going through the same thing, or you see your boss working really hard and you want to be as good as your boss, or you don't want to cause issues for your boss, things like that. I mean, I even run into that. But what I found is that, by kind of being a little bit of uncomfortable moment to tell them, it's such a relief, because that's you loving yourself. You know what I mean? And not only that, you just hearing yourself and taking care of yourself and like listening. And I think Morgan and I both struggle with that.
I want to be the smiley, happy person all the time. And guys, it's not that you can't be that, but like you're saying, if you put yourself a little bit more into the self-love side of things, you realize it before you have to burn out or you're not feeling like you, it's easier to build that back up. It builds up a little quicker. You don't have to reach rock bottom in order to then realize, okay, I deserve it.
I need this. Yeah. It's about being able to recognize it before you hit rock bottom and say, hey, this is how I feel and this is how I deserve, and I deserve to be heard, and I'm going to speak it.
Yep. Definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
I
totally agree.
think the whole point of all this happiness talk and why we're bringing all of this up is really because we struggle with it. And I know there's other people out there who are trying to live their dream life and work a full-time job and also do a side hustle and do all these things. And then you kind of are feeling lost and you're like, what is happiness? Like, how can I ever feel happy when I'm working towards all of these things? It's about being able to incorporate little moments where you're like hearing yourself when you're not happy,
Yeah, no, definitely. And giving yourself the time too in between that. When you do recognize it, allow yourself to do it. Like you said, or like I said, you deserve that time, that space for you. Else before we kind of close this out here today,
close us out, Morgan.
Is I want you guys to know that while you're discovering happiness, it's not fake to be optimistic. And I say that because I think sometimes when we are trying to be optimistic and it feels uncomfortable, it almost feels fake. And you're like, wow, I'm not being me. But what optimism is that you're able to be optimistic through life's triumphs. And sometimes it does sound a little funny, You're like, how am I ever going to make it through? Like, that sounds silly. Or how can I make that moment better just by saying these, 5 words, right? Yeah. But the more and more that you do it, the more and more you're going to be able to handle those triumphs, and you're going to become more resilient because of it. Yep. And oftentimes, again, this optimism doesn't deny the bad days. It embraces that belief in a brighter tomorrow. And without these challenges, we wouldn't learn resilience. And embracing the unexpected strengthens us one day at a time. The more we navigate through these valleys, the higher our peaks and the greater our resilience will become.
I love that.
Yes.
Sounds like a quote from the Bible.
I know. I don't. It's beautiful.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I think too, just being able to balance the happiness that you learned about today, all the different types, and being able to know, oh, this is material happiness. And I can't live my life on material happiness. And if I do, I'm not filling my cup up in other places. And so challenge your beliefs, challenge your happiness, and say, is this really the only thing that makes me happy? Right? Like, I think, or is being, a superstar or whatever you want to be, is being, climbing the ladder of a CEO, is that going to make me happy? You know what I mean? Is that really the only thing that's going to make me happy? Like, look for it in other ways. And that's what I'm trying to do, and do that through self-love and be optimistic about it, because you might not feel it now, but you got to understand that happiness comes and it goes in little moments. And there's different types. We just talked about 6 different types today. So just remember that you don't have to be happy all about one thing. You can challenge it and say, is that really the only thing in my life that's making me happy? Or are there other things that I can look at and say, no, I actually am happy. I'm just not recognizing it.
Absolutely. Definitely. And gratitude journal, guys. It helps with that.
Heck yeah. I love it.
So, all right, guys. Well, it was fun talking all things about this, and we will see you on next episode.
Yeah. And in case you're wondering, I got it's a self-love workbook for women. It's by Megan Logan. So a lot of those quotes came from her. Make sure I give her credit. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
See ya.